Typically speaking, FAQs are placed right at the bottom of a landing page. Now, our landing page is a bad example of this because we don't do this for different reasons, but we often find with our Withu members that taking the FAQs and moving them further up on the page is actually increasing the conversion rates of their landing page. Now, I have a theory as to why. Human attention spans are drastically declining. Not to get too philosophical about it, but if you look at the trend lines of human behavior and how we've searched and received information, it has gotten faster and faster and faster, and we've become accustomed to that. For example, pre-2000s, if you wanted a piece of information, you had to physically go to a library, you had to talk to the librarian, you had to find this book, you had to find the page of the book, read it, probably write it down. The rate of consumption was incredibly slow. Then when the internet and Google came in, we could Google for something, but then what would happen is we had to find the right search result, we had to make sure it was legit. There was still a little bit of psychological resistance there. Now with ChatGPT, a lot of people aren't even going to Google to do research. They're just asking ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is doing the research for them. On top of that, because we're so bombarded with information and just media in general, doom scrolling reels, there's so much information. The average view duration on Facebook used to be 3 seconds, it's now 1.8. And so there's a general decline. And that behavior doesn't change as soon as they click your ad. They're not just smooth-brained as they're scrolling through the news feed, and then all of a sudden they click an ad and now they're a librarian. There is still that residual brain rot that you're going to have to fight. And my opinion and my theory is that FAQs are like the written TikTok equivalent to quickly consume information, reasons, and reach a conclusion for the user personally as to should I opt in or should I not? Or should I just go back? Right? Because typically speaking, if you look at Microsoft Clarity, and I asked members in our Withu program, hey, when you went to the landing page, you skim read this, you thought not listening to this essay when you saw the VSL, you went, all right, cool, you want me to do this? And then they just started scrolling around trying to find information. Now, this is what we have instead of FAQs, it's just immediately outlining what the program is. But then they just scroll through the testimonials. They definitely didn't watch any of them in its entirety. They might have found the one most relevant to them, all right, I'm in electrical services, they'll watch a little bit of that. But just enough to conserve calories so they could scroll back up and decide they're curious and committed enough to complete this form here. And so what you'll often see, what we see with our Withu members is they'll read the headline, they won't watch the VSL, often won't watch the VSL, they'll see the call to action and go, all right, what's the fastest possible way I can consume enough reasons to opt in for this or not? Then they'll see testimonials and FAQs. Again, ours is a bad example of this. We've tested this for us specifically. This is why you always split test things. But they'll have a big list of FAQs. Often I see you guys, you cheap out in your FAQs too much. You have 3 or 4. You should have a dozen FAQs. And just think, what are all the reasons why someone might not opt in for this? And one of the best ways to think about it is if I had just watched 5 seconds of your video ad, only consumed the headline, what are all the things that are going through my head? And often those things are preconceived notions they have about your industry already. This doesn't work for me, or is this X or Y? And you want to think of those and then just have an FAQ there that immediately addresses it so that people can quickly scan the FAQ, see their false belief or their question, go, oh, okay, cool. And then you watch Microsoft Clarity, they'll scroll back up and they'll complete the form.